At 4:36 p.m., a pocket watch buried in the mud stopped ticking. If you look closely at the artifact today, the glass is shattered. The metal casing is bent inward, crushed by a force that the human mind struggles to comprehend. But the time remains frozen. 4:36 p.m. That was the exact moment the heart of a city stopped beating. For over 100 years, the people of Waco, Texas, believed they were invincible. They didn't just believe it, they knew it. It was a fact of life, like gravity or the sunrise. They had an ancient legend, a promise from the Waco Indians who had lived on the land centuries before. The legend said that the bluffs along the Brazos River acted as a shield, a geological barrier that would split any storm that dared to approach. They believed that the shape of the land protected them. They believed that tornadoes simply could not happen here. But on May 11th, 1953, physics caught up with mythology. The legend didn't matter, the bluffs didn't matter, and the innocence of a post-war boomtown was about to be erased in 60 violent seconds. This isn't just a story about wind, it is a story about a trap set by the atmosphere, sprung by bad timing, and sealed by a fatal confidence. This is the story of the day the warning system failed. This is the monster of Waco. To understand the horror of the afternoon, you have to understand the morning, Monday, May 11th, 1953. Waco is a city on the rise. The war is over, the economy is booming, and downtown Waco is the glittering center of commerce for Central Texas. It is a vibrant, bustling grid of brick buildings, movie theaters, and department stores. The streets are lined with Buicks and Chevrolets, chrome bumpers shining under a hazy sky. But there is something wrong with the air. Survivors who woke up that morning remember one thing above all else: the heat. It wasn't just hot, it was heavy. The air in Waco was so thick you could practically drink it. The humidity had climbed to near 100%. It was a sticky, suffocating blanket that clung to your skin the moment you stepped outside. It was the kind of heat that makes people irritable, the kind of heat that makes the air feel solid. Meteorologists call this a cap. Think of it like a lid on a boiling pot. For days, a layer of warm air high in the atmosphere had been holding everything down, trapping the moisture, trapping the heat, trapping the energy. Below that lid, the city of Waco was simmering, pressure was building, and the people walking the streets, buying furniture, grabbing a Dr. Pepper at the drugstore, they had no idea they were walking inside a pressure cooker that was about to explode. By 9:30 a.m., the air is unstable, violently unstable. A massive weather system is moving in from the west. It is a dry line, a clash of air masses that acts like a spark in a room full of gasoline. But nobody in downtown Waco is looking at the sky. Why would they? They have the legend, they have the bluffs. And besides, it's just rain. 50 miles away, in a dark room at Texas A&M University, the mood is very different. It is quiet here. The only sound is the hum of cooling fans and the rhythmic, hypnotic sweep of a radar arm. This is 1953. Radar is still a baby. It is a tool of war, adapted for weather. The screens are small, round, and glowing with a ghostly green phosphorus. The images are grainy, they are hard to read, but the men in this room are seeing something that makes the hair on their arms stand up. Usually, a thunderstorm looks like a blob on the radar, a fuzzy, shapeless mass of white and green. But at 4:00 p.m., the operators see something else. It isn't a blob, it's a hook, a distinct, sharp, curved appendage hanging off the back of the storm cell. We know today that this is a hook echo. It is the fingerprint of a supercell. It is the visual signature of a tornado forming inside the rain. But in 1953, this was barely understood. It was a theory, a terrifying anomaly. The scientists stare at the screen. They watch the line sweep around. Ping, sweep around. Ping. Every time the line passes, the hook gets sharper. It gets tighter. They know something terrible is happening 50 miles to the north. They know a monster is being born. But here is the tragedy of 1953. They can see the bullet, but they cannot scream loud enough to warn the victim. There is no Doppler radar network. There are no smartphones. There are no emergency broadcast sirens that override the radio. The communication chain is slow. It is manual. It relies on telephone operators, and copper wires, and human reaction time. By the time the men at Texas A&M realize exactly what they are looking at, the storm is already moving at 30 miles per hour. It is racing toward a city that is completely, utterly asleep at the wheel. Back in Waco, the clock hits 4 p.m. The sky begins to change. Survivors don't describe it as gray. They describe it as green. A bruised, sickly, olive green. It's the color of a deep bruise. The sun is blotted out completely. The streetlights in downtown Waco flicker and buzz to life, thinking it is night. And then, the rain starts. This is the most critical moment in the timeline. This is the moment where the trap snaps shut. It is not a sprinkle, it is a deluge. Water falls from the sky in sheets so heavy that visibility drops to zero. It is bouncing off the pavement, overflowing the gutters, flooding the intersections. Imagine you are walking down Austin Avenue. You are shopping for a Mother's Day gift. Suddenly, the heavens open up. Hail the size of grapes begins to smash against the sidewalk. What do? You don't get in your car and drive away. You can't see the road. You don't run into an open field. You seek shelter. You run inside. Hundreds of people, shoppers, office workers, pedestrians, they all make the same logical, fatal decision. They run into the nearest buildings to wait out the rain. They crowd into the department stores. They pack into the lobby of the RT Dentist building. They stand shoulder to shoulder, laughing about the weather, wiping water off their coats, complaining about the humidity. They feel safe. These buildings are made of brick. They are 5 stories tall. They have stood here for 40 years. They are the symbols of Waco's strength. But there is something they don't know. The RT Dentist building, like many buildings of that era, is unreinforced masonry. It is essentially a stack of bricks held together by mortar and gravity. It is designed to hold up the roof, not to withstand a lateral impact. They have packed themselves into a house of cards. And the wind is coming to blow it down. 4:10 p.m. A report comes in from the town of Lorena, just south of Waco. A bridge has been ripped out. Trees are snapped in half. The storm is moving north-northeast. It is following the highway. It is heading straight for the heart of the city. But in downtown Waco, the rain is so loud they can't hear the approach. This is the deadly deception of a high-precipitation supercell. When we think of tornadoes, we think of the Wizard of Oz. We think of a distinct, gray funnel moving across a sunny field. We expect to see the danger. But the Waco tornado was different. It was rain-wrapped. It was hidden inside a curtain of falling water. To the people on the street, there was no funnel. There was only a wall of black rain. The monster was invisible. It was cloaked in the very element that drove the victims indoors. 4:25 p.m. The radar operator at Texas A&M watches the hook echo consume the coordinates for downtown Waco. He knows it's too late. 4:30 p.m. The atmosphere in the city changes instantly. The air pressure drops. It happens fast. Your ears pop, like you're driving down a steep mountain. The air suddenly feels thin. Inside the RT Dentist building, the employees look at each other. The laughter stops. A strange sensation washes over the crowd. The hair on their arms stands up, not from fear, but from static electricity. The air is charged. Then, the sound begins. It starts as a low rumble, a vibration in the floorboards. People think it's a train. The tracks are nearby, but the rumble doesn't pass. It gets louder and louder and louder. It becomes a roar. Survivors described it as the sound of 1,000 freight trains screaming at once. It is a grinding, mechanical noise, the sound of the earth being chewed up. Windows begin to rattle, not just shake, but bow inward. Outside, the green sky turns pitch black. Suddenly, the heavy oak doors of the department store fly open, not by a person, but by the wind. They slam against the walls with a crack like a gunshot. The rain is now moving horizontally. Debris begins to hit the building. Bricks, signs, pieces of cars. A man looking out the window on the 5th floor shouts something, but his voice is swallowed by the roar. He sees it. Through the gaps in the rain, he sees the impossible. The street below isn't there anymore. The cars are floating. The asphalt is being peeled up like a strip of tape. The shield has failed. The legend is dead. The monster is here. 4:36 p.m. The lights in the city flicker once, twice, and then total darkness. Darkness. Absolute, heavy, suffocating darkness. It isn't just that the lights went out. It is as if the world itself has been dipped in ink. The gray daylight of the storm has been swallowed by something massive, something solid, that is now sitting directly on top of the city. For a split second, there is a suspension of reality. A fog of war. The brain tries to process what is happening. The ears are popping painfully, like a needle is being pushed into the eardrum. The air suddenly feels freezing cold. And then, the glass explodes. It doesn't break. It doesn't crack. It vaporizes. Thousands of plate glass windows in downtown Waco shatter simultaneously. They are driven inward by wind speeds exceeding 260 miles per hour. The sound is not a crash. It is a shriek. A high-pitched scream of metal and glass tearing apart that cuts right through the roar of the freight train. Inside the RT Dennis building, the air fills with millions of invisible shards. It is a shotgun blast of glass. People dive to the floor. They slide under heavy oak tables. They cover their heads with their coats. They scream, but they cannot hear themselves. The roar is so loud, it vibrates the fluid in their inner ears, canceling out all human sound. The wind is inside now. It is tearing through the aisles of the department store like a living thing. It is hunting. It rips clothes off the racks. It overturns display cases weighing 400 pounds. It picks up typewriters and turns them into cannonballs. This is the moment of the vacuum. We need to understand the physics here to understand the horror. The pressure inside the tornado is so much lower than the pressure inside the building that the atmosphere is trying to turn itself inside out. The walls begin to breathe. Survivors pressed against the floor look up and see the impossible. The brick walls are bulging outward. The mortar, old and brittle, is turning to dust. The building isn't being blown over by the wind. It is exploding from the inside out. Let's freeze time right here. 4:36 p.m. and 30 seconds. I want you to imagine the perspective of a man named L.E. Buster Brown. He is in the pool hall down the street. He is holding on to a heavy slate table. The walls of the pool hall are shaking so violently that the plaster is falling off in sheets. He looks out the window, and he sees the end of the world. He sees a city bus, a 5-ton machine of steel, being lifted off the ground. It isn't rolling, it is floating. It hovers in the air for a second, suspended in the gray slurry of the storm, before it is slammed sideways into a storefront. He sees the marquee of the movie theater, a massive neon sign that has lit up downtown for years, ripped off the face of the building like a Band-Aid. It flies down the street, spinning like a saw blade, decapitating parking meters. Buster closes his eyes. He waits to die. But the pool hall holds. The building next door does not. Back at the RT Dennis building, the structure has reached its breaking point. This is the deadliest moment in Texas weather history. The RT Dennis isn't just a store. It is a trap. It is 5 stories of unreinforced masonry, a stack of bricks held together by gravity and hope. The storm has removed the gravity. On the 5th floor, the roof lifts. Just for a second. It hops up, disconnected from the walls. Then, it slams back down. The impact is catastrophic. The supports shatter. The 5th floor gives way. It falls onto the 4th floor. Crash. The weight doubles. The 4th floor cannot hold it. It collapses onto the 3rd. Crash. It is a pancake collapse, a domino effect of concrete, timber, and steel. Inside, on the ground floor. The people huddled in the darkness feel the floor drop out from under them. The ceiling is coming down to meet them. There is no time to run. There is no time to say goodbye. There is only the sensation of falling and the crushing weight. One survivor, a young woman named Joy, is hiding under a workbench. She hears the building groaning. She hears the rivets popping like gunfire. And then she feels the wind stop. Not because the storm is over, but because she is buried. She is trapped in a pocket of air no bigger than a coffin. Above her is 20 feet of rubble. Below her is the basement. She can't see anything. She can't move her arms, but she can smell it. It isn't the smell of rain anymore. It is the smell of dry dust. Ancient dust from inside the walls that hasn't seen the light of day since 1910. It chokes her instantly, coating her throat, blinding her eyes in the pitch black. She coughs, and she realizes she is not alone. Around her, in the darkness, she hears the moans of the dying. Outside on Austin Avenue, the chaos is absolute. The tornado is moving at 30 miles per hour. It is a grinder, a blender made of wind. It is churning the city of Waco into a slurry of mud, brick, and biology. Let's look at the cars. A 1953 Chevrolet weighs 3,000 pounds. It is a tank. But in this wind, it is a leaf. Cars are being tumbled down the street. They are rolling over and over, crushing anyone who tried to hide behind them. The wind picks one car up, tosses it 20 feet into the air, and slams it down onto the sidewalk upside down. Then, it drops a brick wall on top of it. The vehicle is crushed to a height of 18 inches. If you were inside a car, you didn't stand a chance. The metal creates a tomb. The streetlights are bent at 90-degree angles. They are parallel to the ground, pointing exactly the way the wind went, and the debris. It's not just wood and brick, it's everything. A cash register flies through the air at 100 miles an hour. It is a lethal projectile. A mannequin from a shop window is stripped naked and decapitated. A steel beam from a construction site is twisted like a wet towel. The violence is indiscriminate. A man clutching a telephone pole is ripped away into the darkness. We will never know his name. A woman hiding in a doorway is shielded perfectly, while the building next to her disintegrates. It is a lottery. And the noise, it just keeps going. Roar. It is a constant, deafening, mechanical grinding. It sounds like the earth itself is splitting open. Imagine closing your eyes and standing next to a jet engine at full throttle. Now add the sound of 1,000 trees snapping. Now add the sound of 10,000 bricks grinding together. That is the soundscape of 4:37 p.m. But the horror isn't just the wind, it's the water. This is what makes the Waco tornado unique. This is what makes it a nightmare. It is a high-precipitation storm. The tornado has torn the roofs off the buildings. It has opened the city up like a surgeon. And now, the storm pours millions of gallons of water directly into the open wounds. The rain is falling so hard it is almost solid. It is driving into the basements. It is filling the elevator shafts. The rubble piles are becoming slick. They are becoming unstable. Trapped in the ruins of the R.T. Dennis building, the survivors are facing a new terror. They are not just crushed, they are drowning. Water begins to rise in the voids. Cold, muddy, black water. A man pinned by a steel girder feels the water creeping up his legs, then his waist, then his chest. He tries to push the beam off. It won't move. It weighs a ton. He screams for help, but the roar of the wind swallows his voice. He tilts his head back, trying to keep his nose above the rising tide. This is the cruelest part of the disaster. To survive the collapse, only to die in the flood. And then, there is the electricity. The power grid has been shredded. Live high-voltage lines are snapping and dancing on the wet pavement like angry snakes. Sparks are showering into the rain, illuminating the horror in strobe light flashes. Blue flash, a car crushed flat. Blue flash, a mountain of bricks where a store used to be. Blue flash, a hand reaching out from the rubble. It is a nightmare landscape, a glimpse of hell brought to surface level. The iconic Dr. Pepper building, a landmark of the city, is taking heavy damage. Bricks are peeling off the exterior. The Torrey Hall building, nearby, loses its rear wall. The rooms are exposed to the storm like a dollhouse. Furniture is sucked out into the void. Beds, dressers, chairs, they vanish into the gray swirl. People in the streets are being hit by bricks that are moving faster than baseballs. The human body is not designed for this kind of trauma. The injuries are gruesome. Fractures, punctures, The sand and grit are being blasted into skin like shrapnel. 50 miles away, the radar operator at Texas A&M is still watching the screen. He sees the Hook Echo sitting directly on top of the city. He checks his watch. 4:38 p.m. He knows the physics. He knows that a storm this tight, this organized, is acting like a drill bit. He pictures the people. He pictures the families. He picks up the phone to try and call Waco again. Deadline. The city is offline. It has been severed from the rest of the world, to the outside world. Waco has simply ceased to exist. Back in the rubble, time has lost all meaning. For the victims, this minute feels like a decade. Every second is a battle for survival. Every breath is a victory. A mother holds her child tight in the back of a department store. The roof is gone. The rain is pounding them. She screams a prayer into the wind. "Make it stop! Please, God, make it stop!" The wind seems to answer her with a fresh surge of violence. The debris cloud is now so thick it is acting like sandpaper. It is stripping the paint off of cars. It is stripping the bark off of trees. The monster is eating its fill. It grinds its way north, tearing through East Waco. It crosses the Brazos River. For a moment, the water of the river is sucked up into the funnel. A massive spout of muddy water joins the debris. The bridge shakes, but holds. On the other side, in East Waco, the homes are smaller. They are wood frame. They are not brick. When the tornado hits them, they don't collapse. They disintegrate. Entire neighborhoods are wiped clean off the foundations. Steps leading to nowhere. Chimneys standing like tombstones. The storm is moving faster now. It is eager to leave. It exits the city as quickly as it entered. The wind speed drops. 300 miles per hour, down to 50, down to 20. The roar begins to fade. It moves off into the distance, sounding like that same freight train, finally leaving the station. The heavy rain turns into a light drizzle, and then it stops. 4:40 p.m. The silence returns. But this is not the peaceful silence of the morning. This is not the humid, heavy quiet of the afternoon. This is a dead silence. It is the silence of a battlefield after the shooting stops. There are no birds. There are no cars. There are no sirens. Not yet. There is only the drip, drip, drip of water falling from ruined pipes. The dust begins to settle. The gray light of the afternoon filters back in, and the people of Waco, those who are still standing, open their eyes. They step out from under tables. They crawl out of closets. They stand up from the gutters. They are covered in gray mud. They are bleeding. They are in shock. They look at their city. It is unrecognizable. The landmarks are gone. The skyline has been amputated. The streets are rivers of mud and glass. It looks like a bomb went off. A survivor steps out onto the sidewalk near 5th and Austin. He wipes the mud from his eyes. He looks to his left. The theater is gone. He looks to his right. The cafe is gone. He looks at where the R.T. Dennis building stood 5 minutes ago. It isn't a building anymore. It is a mountain. A pile of bricks 30 feet high. And buried inside that mountain are 30 people. The survivor tries to speak. He tries to call out a name, but his voice catches in his throat. He simply stands there, trembling, in the terrible, terrible quiet. The city is broken. The myth is dead. And as the shock begins to wear off, a new sound begins to rise from the ruins. At first, it is just one voice. "Help!" Then another. "Over here!" Then a scream. "My baby! Where is my baby?" The silence is broken by the sound of a city waking up to its own nightmare. The first few minutes after the wind stops are defined by confusion. It is a fog of war. People are walking in circles. They are dazed. They are covered in a gray paste that is a mixture of mortar dust, rainwater, and street grime. They look like ghosts. There are no sirens yet. The fire stations have been hit. The telephone lines are down. The city is deaf, dumb, and blind. But then, the adrenaline kicks in. The realization hits the survivors like a physical blow. The piles of rubble are not just debris. They are tombs. And inside those tombs, people are screaming. The rescue effort begins not with heavy machinery, not with cranes, not with bulldozers. It begins with hands, bare, bleeding, desperate hands, on Austin Avenue. A man in a torn business suit drops to his knees in the mud. He grabs a brick, he throws it aside, he grabs another, he tears at a jagged piece of lumber. He doesn't care that his fingers are cut. He doesn't care that he is ruining his clothes. He hears a voice underneath the pile, a woman's voice. "I'm here! Get me out!" He digs faster. Another man joins him, then a police officer, then a teenager. They form a line, a human conveyor belt, passing bricks one by one. They are fueled by panic. They know the clock is ticking, because there is a new smell in the air. It isn't the dust anymore. It isn't the rain. It is the sickening, sweet smell of natural gas. The storm has ruptured the gas mains buried beneath the streets. The city is leaking explosive fuel. One spark, one cigarette lighter, one shorting wire, and the entire downtown area will turn into an inferno. "No smoking!" a policeman screams. "Put it out! For God's sake, put it out!" The order is passed down the line. It is shouted from the rooftops. In the darkness of the rubble, people are terrified to move. They are trapped in small pockets of air, smelling the gas, praying that the rescuers don't strike a spark with their shovels. Let's go back to the RT, Dennis Building, the epicenter of the death. This is where the tragedy is most concentrated. The 5-story building is now a 12-foot pile of hash. Rescue workers are climbing over the mound. They are listening. "Quiet!" someone yells. "Everybody quiet!" The digging stops. The heavy breathing stops. They lean in. They press their ears against the wet bricks. Tap, 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 a rhythm. Someone is alive down there. They dig toward the sound. They find a man named L.O., Curly Jones. He was in the recreation club on the 2nd floor. When the building pancaked, he rode the floor down. He is pinned. He is hurt. But he is alive. They pull him out, covered in dust, looking like a statue brought to life. But for every miracle, there is a heartbreak. Just 10 feet away, they find a young mother. She is shielding her baby. The rescuers gently lift the beam off of her. They check for a pulse. Nothing. They check the baby. Nothing. The rescuers don't say a word. They don't cry. They don't have time to mourn. They gently cover the bodies with a tarp, and they turn back to the pile. There are more voices. There is more work. One of the most incredible stories of survival comes from a woman named Lily Matkin. She worked at the RT Dennis store. When the roar started, when the windows blew in, she didn't run for the door. She didn't dive under a table. She did something strange, something instinctive. She ran to the back of the store, and she jumped into a large, deep, porcelain sink. She curled up into a ball. The building collapsed around her. Tons of brick, steel beams, the roof, everything came down. But the heavy industrial sink held its shape. It acted as a hardened cocoon. When the rescuers found her hours later, she was buried deep in the debris. But she was unhurt. She was the girl in the sink. Her story became a legend, a symbol of luck in a landscape of misfortune. But luck was in short supply that night. Night falls on Waco. The city has no power. It is pitch black. The rain continues to drizzle, cold and miserable, but the rescue effort does not stop. The military arrives, soldiers from Fort Hood, airmen from James Connolly Air Force Base. They bring generators. They bring massive floodlights. The scene takes on a surreal, haunting quality. Bright beams of white light cut through the darkness, illuminating the twisted steel and the mountains of wet brick. The shadows are long and jagged. The soundscape changes again. It is the sound of heavy machinery, cranes lifting concrete slabs, jackhammers breaking apart masonry, and the sound of ambulances, endless ambulances. They line up on Austin Avenue like a taxi rank. They load up the injured and speed off to the hospitals. The hospitals are overwhelmed. The hallways are lined with stretchers. Doctors are operating in the corridors. Nurses are tearing sheets into bandages. And then there are the other vehicles, the hearses. They are taking the bodies to a temporary morgue set up at a local garage. This is the grim reality of a mass casualty event. Families are gathering outside the morgue. They are clutching photographs. They are asking the same question over and over again. Have you seen him? He was wearing a blue shirt. He works at the bank. Have you seen her? She's 6 years old. She has blonde hair. The officials have the terrible job of lifting the sheets. The wails of grief that echo through that garage are a sound that Waco will never forget. By the time the sun rises on Tuesday morning, the scale of the destruction is fully visible. Downtown, Waco looks like it has been carpet-bombed. Over 600 businesses are destroyed. 1,000 homes are damaged. 2,000 cars are totaled. And the human cost. 114 people are dead. 597 are injured. It is the deadliest tornado in Texas history, a record that, thankfully, still stands today. But as the shock begins to fade, the anger begins to rise. People start asking questions. Why didn't we know? Why didn't the sirens go off? Why did the buildings fall? This brings us to the investigation. The why. Now, let's look at the 3 fatal factors that doomed Waco. Factor 1, the construction. The R.T. Dennis building, and many others like it, were death traps. They were built in an era before modern building codes. They used lime mortar. Over time, moisture gets into the lime mortar. It degrades. It turns to powder. When the wind hit those buildings, the bricks didn't hold together. They acted like loose gravel. The steel beams inside the buildings weren't tied to the walls. They were just resting in pockets. So, when the walls bowed out, the beams fell. The floors collapsed. The people of Waco were killed by the very architecture they were so proud of. Factor 2, the rain wrap. The survivors all said the same thing. I didn't see a tornado. They were telling the truth. The tornado was wrapped in a curtain of heavy rain. It was invisible. This is a phenomenon known as high-precipitation supercells. It is the most dangerous type of storm because it denies the victim the visual cue of danger. If they had seen a funnel, they might have run to the basements, but because they only saw rain, they ran into the ground floors. They ran into the collapse zone. Factor 3, the communication gap. This is the most tragic factor of all. The radar operators at Texas A&M saw the hook echo. They knew. But there was no system in place to relay that information to the public in real time. There was a fear among meteorologists in 1953, the panic theory. The Weather Bureau, now the National Weather Service, had a policy. They were hesitant to use the word tornado in forecasts. They believed that using the word would cause widespread panic, and that the panic would cause more injuries than the storm itself. They treated the public like children. Waco proved them wrong. Waco proved that panic is survivable. Ignorance is fatal. The legacy of the Waco tornado is not just a list of names on a monument. It is a complete rewiring of how we handle severe weather. Because of this disaster, the panic policy was scrapped. Meteorologists realized that people need to know the truth. They need to know what is coming. Texas A&M University became a hub for severe weather research. The tornado warning system we use today, the sirens, the scrolling text on your TV screen, the alerts on your phone, they were all born in the rubble of Austin Avenue. The hook echo became a standard part of meteorological training. Every radar operator in the world now knows what it looks like. We learned to scream. We learned to build better buildings. We learned to reinforce masonry. We learned to tie the roof to the walls, and the walls to the foundation. The city of Waco rebuilt. The rubble was cleared. The R.T. Dennis building was gone forever. But new buildings rose in its place. But the city was different. The innocence was gone. The Waco legend, the myth of immunity, was buried in the mud alongside the victims. No one in Waco ever looked at a green sky the same way again. No one ever joked about the bluffs protecting them. They learned the hard lesson that nature respects no boundaries. It respects no legends. It respects only physics. Let's return to that pocket watch, the one frozen at 4:36 p.m. It sits in a museum now, a silent witness to the minute that changed everything. It is a reminder of how fragile we are. We build our cities. We pave our roads. We create our schedules. We think we are in control. But every now and then, the atmosphere reminds us that we are just guests here. The Waco tornado was a tragedy of timing, a tragedy of construction, and a tragedy of silence. But because of the 114 souls who were lost that day, the silence was broken. The next time your phone buzzes with a weather alert, the next time you hear a siren wail in the distance, don't ignore it. That sound is their legacy. That sound is the scream they never got to make, and it might just save your life.